Hi everyone, welcome to this live draft analysis on vintage styles. In this analysis, I'm gonna go through 3 styles I really like for this autumn winter, which I think you hopefully like too. And I show you 3 steps I normally use to analyze garments. So if you've watched my draft analysis before, this is a slightly more effective and planned way of doing the same thing, and I've chosen it to show to you so you can compare how you can approach different garments. So welcome everybody to this live. It's lovely to have you. Do feel free to pop into the chat and say hello. While you're doing that, I'm going to quickly tell you a bit more about myself if we haven't met before. And my name is Charlotta. I'm a pattern cutter and fashion designer and teacher. And I live in the UK. I've worked in London. I've taught fashion design in real life near London, and now I'm based online. And I love teaching online because I get to meet lots of people like you, and I also get to help people create their own clothes. So before I was industry based, so I really like the change of working with people and helping them create their own wardrobes. Oh, and I can see some people have arrived. So hello Nerges, I hope you're well, and hello Yvette, lovely to have you two here. So what I'm going to do today is I'm going to look at these 3 vintage styles, which is a Jean Moore, which I hope I pronounce right, Jesus. And I love this for the sort of late 1960s, early 1970s style. And you can see this is the dress I'm going to look at. I'm also going to look at, this is a blue version of it. I'm going to look at this really nice 1950s coat, because it's now autumn, so I think we all need some nice swing coats. And I also wanted to share this detail with you because that's a sort of very wearable, easy detail with a bit of vintage flair, but which you can easily update as well. And let's just see somebody else that has arrived. Hello, Anita. I hope you're well. And I look forward to us looking at this. And at the I'm going to go through these 3 styles. And I'm also got some really exciting news because it's autumn. And it always feels like it's time to try something new. And I've got something new to share with you. So once I've done the draft analysis, I'm going to talk a bit more about that and also show you how you can relate it to the draft analysis. What I'm going to do is I'm going to switch to the table camera for now so you can see it in a bit more detail. So, if you've joined one of my lives before, you sort of know that what I call a draft analysis is a way of working out how a garment is made by looking at drawing, but the same you can of course do to your own design. So if you're a pattern cutter or if you make your own clothes, it's whether it's your own designs or designer ideas. And I can just see Katie has arrived. So hi Katie, I hope you're doing well. Thank you for joining me. So if whether I'm doing my own clothes or whether I'm working for somebody else, I always use the same 3 steps. And they're the same when I'm going through a process with you as well. And that is, you look first of all at the overall shape. So what I call the shape, some people might call the silhouette. Or you might even sort of call it what block you might use. And also what sort of fit or how much ease, how much volume you want. So they're all sort of different words, and I think that's where it gets a bit confusing sometimes with lots of different people telling you different things, but we all have different meanings. But it's all about actually working out what blocks you might use, how fitted that garment needs to be. So something like this dress, you can see the overall silhouette is quite fitted. So it's got the shoulders go right to where your normal block ends, then it's got a yoke, then it's got a bit of volume around the bust area, but the waist itself is fitted again. So again, that way you can again work out what sort of blocks you need. So what we actually have is a very fitted block, which has added volume there. So I'm just going to sketch it out because I want to show you the three silhouettes by comparison. So you can see the sleeves actually have volume added, but again, it's properly either your basic bodice block, or you might even go for a fitted block, or dress block if you have such a thing. And if you compare it, for example, to our coat, that is quite different. So you can see it's definitely the whole silhouette itself is, I'm going to draw in the shawl collar quickly so I can draw in the silhouette. So it's got the oversized shawl collar, but I'm not going to look at that yet. I want to look at the silhouette. So you can see the shoulders are very slightly below where your natural shoulder be. So it's a slightly widened or dropped shoulders, which you can create in different ways. And then the oval shape is A-line. So you can see you end up with something which is a lot bigger than the dress. And again, the sleeves are also either oversized all the way down, or they could even be slightly flared. So that is your overall silhouette again. And then again, if you compare that to this dress, this is this top. Sorry, can you? I want to move over here. This blouse is slightly less, so it's still got a natural shoulder. Down here, otherwise I won't be able to draw being left-handed. So you can see it's got a slightly neck, raised neck. They're going to look at it later, and it's just got that little detail here and a yoke again. But then again, can you see it skims around the body? So this time you probably, the oval shape is something like this. So it's less fitted than the dress, but is a lot more fitted than the coat. So something like this, you would either use a relaxed block, a coat block, or you use your basic block, because most of us only have one block because it's hard enough to get one. And then you add design ease. So when we talk to fitting ease, that's all about how you be able to move and breathe. With design ease, it's about how you add volume. So you might also call this volume. So we're going to use our normal bodice block and we create volume. And for then the final one, the block you probably use in the silhouette however is just your basic bodice block. So there's probably no changes made at all. So that's always the first step I look at. So I always want to find out what block is the best one to use, and for most of us that is a basic bodice block. So whenever I teach you anything, I always start with that, because I think it's unfair to assume you got different blocks. And also the good thing, of course, about the basic bodice block is you know really well how it fits you. So and then you can just decide for something like a dress, you might actually say, oh, at the waist, I've got 5 centimeter ease, 2 inches or 3 even. So you might actually take it out slightly to make it a bit more fitted. And with something like this blouse, you probably leave that exactly the same fit. So that's the easiest to do, because you can just use your basic bodice block and just add the design. But with something like the coat, you probably go the other way. So whenever you see me drawing just a normal analysis, like the last one we did on Instagram, was this one for the coat, I start out by sort of drawing the shape I think it would be. So this is just to like a quicker version, and that helps you sort of actually in your mind already analyze and work out what sort of fits do I need. Do I need to add volume? Do I need to add slash and add volume, drop my shoulder? Do I need to make it more fitted, or can I actually use my block more or less as it is? So that's the first step I do. And I've just seen some more people have turned up in the chat. So hello, Eileen, it's lovely to have you. It's great to see all of you. I think there's quite a few watching. So if you feel free to pop into the chat and say hello. And can you hear an echo? Are you okay? Because I could just sometimes my camera plays up. I'm really gonna check that, and then hopefully you'll be able to hear it. Is that better? Good. Sorry, it's the different cameras. So that is the first step in drafting. Actually, I said the first step, staff drafting is the first step before you even move on to a block and paper. This is drafting analysis you do, so drafting with your pen and drawing to make the rest much easier. Oh, it's wonderful that the sound is coming through. Good. It's always slightly worrying with a live, because you rely on everything working. So this second step, actually, I'm going to do it all in the same garment so you can see it in different colors. So I'm going to move back to the table. And if you go back to the John Moore dress, it would have probably been in a really nice fine wool, but you could also make it in a silk or rayon. And the second step would always be the details, the drafting details. So what I mean by that is the style lines. So we're going to talk about real details in a second, but I sort of next to is the style lines, which you could also call the design decisions. So that is about where do we put our it's all about where do we put our neckline, where do we put our waist, where do we put our shoulder. So partly the shoulder is about fit. So on the swing coat, dropped shoulder is to do with that it's slightly oversized silhouette. But of course, at the same time, you can have a really fitted garment like this, where the shoulder seam is a raglan sleeve. So there are lots of different decisions you can do. Oh, and hello, Simon. Lovely to have you here. So let's work out the different style lines or designs on this one. So that's all the darts, the seams, also how you get into it. That's both, that can be both a design decision and a detail. And it could also be things like collar and stuff. And I'm going to move slightly closer to the table. You can see a bit better. It's going to be slightly wobbly. So. Okay, let's have a quick look at this dress again. So you can see the style lines would be that yoke. And what she's actually done is it's quite a clever one. She actually slightly changed her shoulder shape, but that's not to do with fit, that's to do with the design. And then that becomes your yoke. And that then also so joins to your button stand, whether it's one piece or whether you add a seam. But you can see these are the sort of style lines you want to create. So you would add a yoke, you would add a second seam shaped from underneath your bust area, which becomes a button stand, and you would that also would become sort of a waist shaped detail. And then by contrast, you would add volume above, so in between the yoke and the waist part. So that's the sort of decision where you create separations which are purely ornamental, like this yoke, and where you create separations which have to do with fit and with your darts. So here we're using our darts for volume, while here we're actually getting rid of our darts and seam by creating a horizontal panel. And so that's the sort of style line decision. So it's nothing to do with oval shape. It's all about aesthetic looks. But of course, with something like the bust area, where we have little gathers, that's also to do slightly with fit, but it's design fit. So it's something you could easily just change after you created the overall shape. So the silhouette, the block, that's what you do first to get it right. And then these things, you can sort of work around them. But if you got your shape wrong, it'd be really hard. You can mess around with your style lines, but they will never look right. So if I put, for example, made this coat with a really fitted block, it won't look right unless I add lots of volume. Same if I made the dress with an oversized block, like a shirt block, then it'd be really hard to get it to look like that. So that's the sort of difference between step one, where you're using a shape, and step two, where it's becoming more about what sort of clothes you'd like. So that's the decisions here. And then the rest, actually the third decision on here would be about the sleeves. So where the sort of style lines we add is a yoke, a waist panel, turning darts into gathers, and also adding a bit of gathers to the sleeve. And that will change the silhouette, but it's more up to you how you do it. So that is step two on the dress. On the swing coat, step two would be things like the length of your sleeve, and it's also things like this really oversized shawl collar. You all know I love a shawl collar, and actually shawl collars are very popular again this autumn, and it's things like even this curve. So you can see on the dress, the step one was more straightforward. Step two is more complicated. On the jacket, getting the oval shape, step one right, will be where a lot of the work happens. But once you've done that, adding the details, the style lines, it's actually quite straightforward. It's just a shawl collar. And I just had a really good question by Nergis. She says, do you think the button details on the first dress are functional or decorative? And Nergis, that's going to be the next step. I'm going to talk about that in a second. So this is a bit different from how I normally do it, but I just wanted to show you how you can use the same method each time for different garments. And then on the third one, the sort of design decisions would be what sort of sleeve you might want to add, what sort of collar you might want to add. So the sleeve is quite basic. There's no design details really. The collar is a little 1940s thrown-on stand collar. And then the sort of third design decision or style line decision you do is that yoke, and also how you add the volume here for the knot detail. So that's our second step. And you would probably make a trial after the first step, after you decided and created your shape or your silhouette, to make sure it fits how you want. And once you've done that, you can do the fun part, which is all the style lines, the designs. And once you've done that, we're going to do your third step. And your third step is really where it becomes less about drafting and more about both practicalities and also about pretty details you might want to add, but which don't really change the overall fit. Because, for example, adding a yoke and a waistband, that has quite a big impact. The third step is all the little details and the sort of practicalities. So you might say it's not quite clear what step between the second is and the third. I would say anything to do with the second step is things that you might amend the pattern. By the third steps are pure practicality, such as zips, button stands, pocket details, or maybe even separate collars. So I'm going to quickly now sketch them all in on the sketchbooks. So if you have a look, let's start with the dress again. So you can see on the dress, the first little detail, which this is probably the one which is actually still where you have to do some drafting, but one detail would be a stand collar. So that's really more about personal choice. You can do it after you've done all your other design decisions. You can just edit. And same as you got cuffs on the armholes. So that's the second design decision. The third one is to add that pleat. You can do it in the second step as well, but it hasn't got that much difference. So you could either add that here or there. But also to have pockets in the side, that would be a detailed decision. And the last decision would be, I've drawn in my center front seam, and then your detail decision, your practicality would be, is this a working button stand or is it purely ornamental? And I think it can be either. The original might have been real, but for a better line, I would make it ornamental. But that's the sort of practicalities you have to think about. So it's less to do with design and it's more to do with how you'd wear it. So for real life, yes, it'd be lovely to have a working button stand at the front, but it's probably much easier to put on and gives you a much neater line if you have a center back zip or if you have a side zip. So these are the decisions to have. Of course, if you have a working button stand, you would probably add some facing here again. So that's another practicality rather than a drafting decision. So the third one is sort of all the little ones about facings, linings. So for example, on here, you definitely have, of course, 2 layers on your collar. The cuff might have had a fold. You would probably cut your base panel with a facing, and you probably cut your yoke with a facing to strengthen it. So these are the sort of practicalities, which is once you've designed your dress, you add all the details. And the same if you go to the swing coat. You can see here, again, the practicalities would be to add the facing. It'd be lining and facing inside. And that be the practicalities. The pretty design in this case would be the really nice shaped pocket. So you can see these are the sort of things in a way. A pocket you can just stick on or stick in. A cuff you can just add on later. And facings are the things which are less about design and more about construction and making the garment wearable in real life. So that would be the details position on your swing coat. And then on the final one, again, your details decision would be whether to make this a workable blouse or whether you make it a detail. If it's a workable blouse, it would be again to add your facing. It would be also what to decide what to do on cuffs. So again, whether you add a facing and visible stitchage, also how you finish the hem at the bottom, and finally also whether you, for example, bag out or face the whole top, so you get the nice bow, where you again just have a facing there. So they are the sort of practical decisions you want to do. I'm going to slightly zoom out so I can talk to you about a few more things. So I hope that all made sense, the 3 steps I use. And you might have sort of noticed whenever I draw, I now automatically do it. But we had quite a few chats recently about how we draw and how we get from an image to drafting your patterns. So I wanted to just show you a step-by-step guide. And the reason I've chosen these styles is because it's sort of autumn. It's time to do something new. So if you're on my Patreon, you might have already had some advance notice of it. But I'm really excited to share my autumn vintage pattern masterclass with you. And all these styles are variations of what you learn to draft. So in the vintage masterclass, for example, the dress is quite straightforward, because what we start with is, I'll show you. So this is the vintage Peta masterclass, and you can just see this is how the course looks like. And for example, here we've got the yoke top. And the yoke top looks like this. You can see it's got the similar style lines as the top we're working at, but so you learn the methods on how to draft a yoke top, but then using something like draft analysis, you can use whatever methods you've learned to create something completely different. And that's why I created Vintage Masterclass, because there's so many tutorials out there which just teach you a few steps, or they just teach you exactly how to create the method. Well, I wanted to create like a masterclass where you learn lots of different methods and you get to create a few finished garments, 5 of them. But then once you've done it, you will have all the knowledge to create more or less any garment you want. So maybe not a corset, but you'll be able to look at a dress, a jacket, or a top and recreate them how you'd like them to look. And that's what I really love about teaching you and helping you to create the dream wardrobe, is that you take control and you get the skills to draft your own. And if you are on my if you've seen me on my Instagram, you know what I love sharing with information with you. I love helping you and working out with you how you can take control and create stuff. So I just quickly wanted to show you a few more options you can have. Some of them we've done before, but if you look at the Vintage Masterclass, is what I wanted to show you is just all the different parts of it. So how we can use that to recreate the different styles. So what I love about it is, some of you have already done it, if you're watching, but what's really nice is that there's lots of different styles. So this has taken me quite a long time to develop, and I only do 10 places. It's actually, for that, it's £147, which isn't very expensive because it's a very limited course, and you get 2 live Q&As. So you actually get 2 lessons like that, but they're limited to 10 people. So you feel confident enough to ask any questions, and I can help you personally. You don't get lost in the crowd. So it's sort of what I've sort of learned from teaching real life and doing different courses, what works best to help people create their own stuff. So there's 5 styles to create, and there's 52 tutorials. So you need a block, but I also supply a block. But once you've got that, it's very much about the design. So I go through all the tools, I go through the basic process, but then I teach you all the steps. So you can either recreate the whole garment, or you can split it up and just pick the bits and pieces and recreate that dress or that jacket. And then there's also 5 illustrated ebooks, and there actually, I'm going to show you one in a second. This is where I sort of put in all the information. So you've got video tutorials, you also got diagrams, and you've also got all the written instructions. So it's very much about you being able to learn in a way that suits you at your pace, and you keep it forever. So you can always refer back to it. So in a year's time, if you're doing something, you think, oh, I'm not quite sure how to do it, you can go back to it and refer back to it. I've also included a bonus, which is a construction guide. So you can actually learn how to make everything. And with best over 20 techniques, so you can learn to master them all, and then you can apply them to lots of different garments. And the reason I did this vintage pattern cutting masterclass is just to get all the information for you in one place and to help you. So I've been doing this for over 20 years. I've made a lot of mistakes in my life, and I've sort of gotten to the methods which work for me, like the draft analysis, like working out step by step what works. And then I've sort of combined all that into the course and adapted it so it suits you for making your own clothes rather than fashion industry, which is slightly different. So it would be lovely to see some of you there. It opens on the 1st of October. As I said, there's only 10 places because I've got the 2 live Q&As where we normally chat about all the content. You can ask any questions, and quite often if people bring me a style they want to adapt, then we also do a mini tutorial in the live Q&A. So you get both the best of both worlds. You get to learn at your own pace and in your own method, but then you also have a live element, so you don't feel like it's just up to you and there's no one there to help, and you can ask questions. And then by the end of it, you should be really confident to just recreate any of these looks. So there's 2 tops which can also be turned into dresses, there is a jacket, there's a coat, and there's also a more sculptural Balenciaga inspired dress, which I'm working at and wearing at the moment. So hopefully there's something for you there. If you'd like to join, it would be lovely to have you. You just go to my website and you sign up via the main page. So I could just show you quickly. So you just sign up here, and when it starts on the 1st of October, you get an email with all the information. And then once it starts on the 1st of October, you get everything at once. So you can either start with the first look, which is actually the yoke top to create this dress, which is my favorite, which I'm going to make for this autumn. So we can make it together maybe. Or you can just pick what you wanted. I've started with the easiest, which is the yoke top, but then of course you can also say, oh, I feel like that's a bit too easy for me. I'm going to go straight to the swing coat or to the trapeze dress. So that's up to you. So that's sort of flexible. There is a course plan I've included, but it's also up to you, and you can dip in and out to create anything you want. So if you'd like to join, that'd be fantastic. I'm just gonna see whether you've got any questions about any of these looks or about the vintage pattern cutting masterclass. And then I'm gonna put a link in the description for you to sign up as well. And please do feel free to email me or send me a message on Instagram if you have any questions at all. So some of you have already done the course, and I know some of you are on my Patreon, so we've talked about it a bit. So there's an overlap, and I think some of you are just here from my Instagram. So I'm also going to put more information on my Instagram over the next few days, just to tell you more, because there's quite a lot of content. And Janet, you asked about how would you draft the tie. So the tie, there's two versions of drafting it. I'm going to show you one which is in the Vintage Masterclass, but there's also a different version of drafting it, which is on Patreon already, and I can share it with you. So there's two ways. The one on the Vintage Masterclass, which is this one, is a bit more advanced because we're going really 3D, and you can see this is the ebook for each of the styles. So you can see with illustration how I think it looks like. There is a trial, there is a sort of main style lines about it, and then it literally goes step by step through all the different style steps you need to do to achieve it. So that's one way of creating it, which is a bit more 3D, and the other way is I've done a tutorial for it already as well. So that's the nice thing about the learning to draft as well, that you then have lots of different ways of approaching the same problem. And Nergis, you asking, are the dates for the live Q&A in the masterclass already set? They are. I've set them for 2 Saturdays, but I'm also at 8 p.m. UK time. But I'm also happy if there's, for example, lots of people from different time zones to offer a third date to suit you, because I know some of you are in New Zealand and in Australia, and some of you in America. So it's so slightly tricky, but I'm happy to offer 2 alternative times and dates if it doesn't suit everybody. But it would be something like, I think it's the Saturdays 2 weeks after the 1st of October, it should be the 16th of October, and then it's something like the beginning of November. I think it's actually, I've put it in on the website already. And this class I've run this class already twice. So the people who've done it really loved it, and I'm going to share some more testimonials of them. But it's quite an in-depth class for what it is, for its price, and it is sort of the best of a membership and a course. So you keep it forever, you have it all in one place, but also you get some live sessions. So I've planned them for the 16th of October at 8 p.m. UK time, and I've also planned them for the 6th of November, 8 p.m. UK time. So let me know how it works for you. Oh yes, and you're very welcome, Miss J. I sent you a DM. Yes, and so if you have any questions, please do feel free to message me, and I'm going to share some more stuff on Instagram and via my newsletter as well. But thank you so much for joining me. I hope you liked my 3-step process, and it's something most of you probably would naturally do. You always look at how you get to the fit first, then you add your design decisions, and finally you add your details and think about how to get in and out and how to line it and face it. But I think it's sort of quite nice to actually break it down and compare it across different styles rather than more leisurely looking at one style and drawing it as it is. And yes, if any of you would like to join me on the Vintage Pattern Masterclass, I would love to have you there and help you create your dream wardrobe. Just sign up via the link in the description below, and you can also use it to find out more, or put something in the comments if you have a question, or ask me on Instagram. And I'm gonna make the 1960s wool dress for this autumn, so we can make it together, which would be lovely. But anyway, that's it for me for tonight. It was lovely to see all of you here, and I will speak to you soon. Bye, everybody. Bye, Yvette. Bye, Janet. Bye, Nergis. Bye, Katie. And bye, Anita. And bye, Robin. And bye, Eileen. It was lovely to chat to all of you. Bye-bye, everybody.